Sippers, welcome to this episode of the Tea With Me podcast, the Wednesday episode. You know by now we're doing Wednesday and Friday episodes with a Patreon episode on a Monday. Patreon.com/Tea With Me podcast for the wee secret under the counter episode. Thank you very much for joining me. We've banked quite a few episodes of the podcast in the last week or so. The Liam McCourt episode went out last week and I did a solo one. Great reaction to the Liam McCourt one, by the way. I think people enjoyed it, even if they're not into MMA. So really glad with the way that went down. And also, we sort of talked on that podcast a bit about the way guys are really creepy to Leah, like being like a female fighter. She gets loads of really weird DMs, and we talked about that on the podcast. And then she sent me a screenshot after the podcast, like on the day it went up. She put up a picture on Instagram of her watching TV, and you could like see her feet in it. I think she might have been wearing socks, so you could see her feet in it, just like in the bottom of the picture. And some fella was on there straight away, being like, "Oh, I'd love to get involved with those and all." And then I put the post up. I put a picture of Leah up to up with the post of the podcast, basically being like, "This is my guest, Liam McCourt." And yeah, straight away like 3 or 4 fellas being like, "Oh, why?" and all. So, I mean, totally get her bemusement at all that kind of thing. I mean, annoyingly, nobody does that when I put stuff up. Like, I used to get that for a while. Like, I've definitely had a few fellas being like, "All right, mate, what's the situation here?" But it doesn't really happen as much, and I don't know whether I feel like I've blossomed. I feel like as I get older, I'm getting a lot cuter. But it's drying up, or maybe these guys just know I'm married. But I'm just saying, Gosling, if you're watching, get in touch. Just comment under a picture, let me know that you're interested, and I'll just get straight back to you. In this episode today, I'm speaking to Oon Cogan. I didn't know what to do. If you're watching the video episode, witness that moment where I just didn't know where to put my hand, which is weird because it's my own hand. But this episode, I'm speaking to Oon Cogan. Owen, many of you will know from the Hardy Box or for the brilliant video series he does for Paddy Power. He is a stand-up comedian. He's phenomenal on social media as well. All the stuff he puts up on Instagram, the sort of homemade videos he makes and sketches tickle me every time. I'm a massive fan of the Hardy Box. I kind of talked to him in this episode about how I got into watching the Hardy Box, and it was fun to sort of talk about the making of it. And the Hardy Box, if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube, and then it became an RTE series, and then a film on Netflix, and it was just a group of guys from Ireland who came up with these characters and this world of Castlebar. No, is it filmed in Castletown, which I feel like might be, Castlebar inspired, and that's actually where I had my chat to Owen. He was in Castlebar at the time, so we talked about the background of Hardy Box and a bit about stand up as well. Just a thoroughly nice guy. Anytime I've met him, just so sort of sincere, so down to earth. Loves chatting about the ins and outs of stand up, which I'm always down for. Let me take a little sip. Gorgeous. And the tea's not bad either. I'm alright, video podcast people know what I'm talking about. Very tight t-shirt. But this episode with Owen, I really enjoyed doing. We talked about it. We talked in it about maybe doing a sketch together at some point, and I'd be really keen to do that because I think we'd work well together. But I'm a big fan of Hardy Box, so I was delighted to get him to do this episode. We've got more guests coming up, but if there's guests you would like me to try and get, I will ask anyone to do this that you think would be good. So get in touch, comment under this or whatever, or send us an email, teawithmepodcast@gmail.com. We do check that every day, and let us know what the crack is. So onwards with the podcast. This is the Tea With Me podcast with my friend from the Hardy Box, Oon Cogan. Owen, my first question for everybody in the podcast is, do you drink tea? How much tea do you drink? That kind of thing. I am just going to make an assumption. I definitely see you as like a guy who leaves the bag in, and you can make that what you will. and for some reason, I think you either take a little bit of milk, like a very tiny bit of milk, and it doesn't even change the color, or I think you take like an obscene amount of milk. Like, I think it could be more milk than tea.
Yeah, well, the thing is with the tea, I used to be a big tea drinker growing up, and it was very milky tea. But then I got a couple of Balkans over the years from different people along the way. So I started making my tea stronger. But then I moved to Dublin City, and then I started drinking coffee because I had to be places. You know, I had no
So
time for tea.
So I'm new to coffee as well. I only took up coffee about 3-4 months ago. You get I think you get more respect as a coffee drinker. You know when you're like when you go for a meeting and you say like, "Hey, get me a coffee." When you say "get me a tea," you definitely sound like you live in a basement and
Yeah.
there's just you're not a slicker. No city slickers drink tea. It's all coffee. It's all coffee.
Exactly. Like if you drink coffee, you've got places to be. You're a businessman and you've got money in your back pocket. But if you drink tea, you're just some idiot that grows your own vegetables. You know.
So what's your sort of like lockdown situation? Are you in Dublin now? You live in Dublin?
I was living in Dublin for about 5 years, Shane. But then on the day that it was full lockdown in Dublin, myself and my missus, we were actually leaving Dublin anyways to move to Mayo. So I live in Mayo again, but I don't live with the parents or anything like that. I live just like, Belmullet.
I've heard of Belmont. I did a gig in Mayo for the first time. Castlebar,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
like a,
exactly where I am now. I'm parked up in Castlebar.
I mean, people will still remember it as being very mediocre. Not great. Wasn't a great gig. Was not a great
Oh, I've been
gig.
there.
My
Trust
issue
me, I've
was
been there.
there's a restaurant beside where the gig is, like a real like fine dining restaurant. I don't know what it's called. And me and Colin Geddes were doing like a double header in Castlebar, which
Yeah.
sounds like a Drake album. But we just before the gig, we were like, well, we go to Supermax or this like Michelin star place, and we went there. And for some reason, I ordered duck, and I had like loads of duck breast, and then I just couldn't move on stage. And I also you wouldn't get sympathy from the crowd being like, sorry about this, guys. I just
I've
had
got the duck splits.
40 euro worth of duck there, but yeah, you I sort of found out about you from the Hardy Buck days because
Yeah.
I was a massive original Hardy Bucks fan. I have no idea how. I guess when Hardy Bucks kind of blew up, it was way before obviously Instagram and stuff like that, but it was even before the times when people shared stuff online. It was more like
Yeah.
there was more of like you just had to find out about stuff. It was more like word of mouth. Like someone's uncle on a street corner at midnight would be like, "Hey, you got to check this thing out."
Yeah,
And
yeah. You'd have a bag of DVDs as well.
yeah, no Blu-rays for some reason. Yeah, and this was before Blu-ray players were available.
You could just look at them.
Yeah,
I think,
but yeah.
we had it on the Bebo days. Were you into Bebo?
Yeah. That sounds like a dance, doesn't it?
It does a bit. Yeah, yeah. We used to sit around the computer, the five of us, like, and look. Do you want to upload it this time? Do you want to upload the video this time? We were so like, it seems like very naive times, like, because obviously nowadays everyone's very highly like teched up. But we were like, we'd go on to Bebo and we'd upload the videos to there, and I'd be like, can you put a picture on there? And then the lad on the laptop would turn around and go, we can, yeah. And it'd be all excitement. So that's where it started off, Bebo.
Bebo,
That's
remember
probably
your top 12? People were ruthless with their top 12 friends on Bebo. Like
Bro.
you'd just be moving in and out every day. Some days you're in someone's top 12, the next you're just fucking out of it. And then a girl would introduce you to her top 12. She'd put you like 10th or 11th, and that was like a
Yeah.
sign. That was a big sign. But I remember me and my mate Stevie watched every episode of Hardy Bucks, so we were maybe like a wee bit late to the party by
Yeah.
like a couple of months, and we had so many episodes to go through. And I remember we were having a couple of drinks and we watched, I think it was in my dad's house at the time, we watched every episode, and like it's still as quotable. Not like, would that have been like 10 years ago, Hardy Bucks?
It's more because I'm
More?
35 now, and Hardy Bucks. I think I was 23 when it started, so it's 12 years now.
I mean,
That age away.
it's such a big cultural thing. I mean, so many people, no matter where you're from, I guess not just in Ireland, North and South, but in the UK and stuff, people would know it. And I don't know what it was about. I just wanted to watch more and more and more, and just like every character that would be introduced, you were like, oh, who's this guy? It was like
the Royal Rumble almost.
yeah, yeah. People just tagging in. See,
Yeah.
when you made that at the time, because it was maybe like a Bebo time, and there wasn't, it wasn't all about views and stuff like that. What was the point where you realized collectively, where you all went like, this is something here, like people are well into this?
Probably when we got paid for it. There was a
Right.
weekend we were filming like one of the episodes. It was the Mitzi Turbo Cup. We were filming that weekend in Swinford because we're all doing our different jobs at the time in Galway. I was working in Galway, I think, and then a couple of lads working in Cork. But then we met up this weekend in Swinford in Mayo, which is where we filmed it. And we filmed for about 2 days. Then we went on the beer, and then some lad just randomly met us in a hotel and gave us €500 each. So we were like, well, we're getting paid €500 for this. So then we're like, geez, there could be something in this, you know. And then slowly but surely, we started getting recognized on the streets. People might give you a quote from the show that you've said or whatever, or mention the character's name, and then you're like, geez, this is kind of weird. People are like beginning to recognize who we are. And then we got offered a couple of gigs, and we play the Russian Dove in Galway. Have you ever done that one?
Oh, loads of times, yeah. It's potentially the best comedy venue
Yeah,
in Ireland. One of the best. Like, oh, it's
it is.
unreal. Yeah.
It's very nice. Yeah, yeah. So myself and the boys, Seth, Eddie Durkin, the Viper, and a few others, we went to the gig and did the gig in the Russian Dove. But we thought that stand-up comedy was exactly the same as on video. So we went up on stage and we'd do a few lines, and if they didn't work, we'd be like, "We're going to do that again, folks." But like the crowd are looking at us, going, "What the fuck are these lads on about?" But again, we got paid for that. Not that it's about the money, but we got paid a nice chunk of money for that gig as well. And we were, I remember the next day we were all counting the money in the car like fucking some shite businessman.
Yeah.
And some Hardy Bucks fan came over to us. He's like, "How are you boys?" And we're like, "Hide the money, hide the money." It was only like 300 quid each or something, but it was nice. It was nice at the time.
Does this happen to you where, like, do people quote? I imagine this happens. People quote like your lines from Hardy Bucks, but you've done that many episodes that you don't recognize the quote. So you ever get someone and they like give you a nod on a point and say like a completely mysterious phrase, and you have to go, yeah, but you have no idea.
Yeah, yeah, that happens a fair bit. Like where, because it's like, as I said, 13 years ago, so you forget most of them. But if someone does do a quote, I'll look at their face and I'll try to quickly register if they're up for a joke, and I'll be like, "Oh, is that a gag?" Or I'll say, "Is that a line from Fair City?" Or some crap cheesy line that sort of breaks the ice, because obviously you're not going to remember all of your own stuff, you know.
Yeah. Was there anyone in Hardy Bucks that just happened to be about, and you guys were like, jump in, be in this, like
Stateside,
stateside, right?
he
So
was walking in the street playing pool. Sorry, I interrupt your question.
no. That's exactly what I'm after. I like the idea that like not everybody was cast. I like the idea that some people just happened to be about where you were filming, and that's true then.
That's true. Yeah. Well, like a lot of us were just friends hanging out with, and one of the two lads happened to have a camera. But then the rest of the characters, like Big Mick, who's Eddie Durkin's uncle in the show and in real life, he was just in doing a bit of shopping in town, and he was like, "I might jump into that show if you don't mind." And we're like, "Yeah, no bother." Stateside was in town playing pool. He was in some pool competition, and he was walking down with those, those space boots that people wear.
Yeah.
He was wearing them, and he had long hair, and he had makeup on, and he was wearing like a leather frilly jacket, and you wouldn't really see that in Mayo. So we're like, "Who the hell is that lad?" So we're like, "Do you want to be in the show?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure." And then he's been in it ever since. So it just, there was no auditions. It was just, if you were a bit weird, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, still now, like Mitzi Turbo Cup was potentially my favorite episode, and then whenever the Hardy Bucks went from online to RTE to TV, how much did things change in the way that you filmed it?
They changed a lot, because it went from, because the show, the YouTube stuff was 100% improvised, but then we had the Viper who edited the whole show, so he had a lot of work to do in the post. But that gave us the liberty of being able to improvise for, like, we might be doing a 10-minute scene, but we might be doing it for like an hour and a half, where the
Yeah.
cameraman has to stop because his shoulder is sore. Like, that never really happens, you know. So then when we got onto TV, we had loads of scripts, and we're like, what are these crap lines that we had? We had to kind of write these crap lines for ourselves just so RT would give us money. Otherwise, we couldn't just go to RT and say, "Can you give us money? We're just going to make up shite for like 6 episodes."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you, sorry, when you were out filming, did it become more difficult to just like film on the street, for example, because so many people would drive past, beep the
Yeah.
horns, and I know sometimes you might work that into a bit, pretend to chat to them, but
Yeah.
did it become difficult to go out and about and film?
It did. Well, definitely in the YouTube days, it was easier because you're an underdog. You're just making something on the internet. So people are like, "Oh, brilliant, fair play to you." Or they'll leave you. They're like, "What are you doing?" And they'll go around you. But
Yeah.
then when it's on our TV, and sometimes with RT, people are like, "All right, there's a few pound there, is there?" And then they'll purposely like get me into it. But people were generally sound about it too. But it did get a bit harder and a lot more paperwork, I suppose, came with the RT stuff. And the scripted stuff, it didn't really suit us because we're not scripted actors, we're more improvised comedians. So we had to find a balance. But I always thought, I think most of us think that the first series on RT was a bit shite.
Yeah, I mean, it would obviously be mad to go from just literally being able to do whatever you want, and then all of a sudden you got to justify every joke, and when you have to get into like explaining why something's funny, then it's just
It
not.
loses its comedy.
Yeah. Did you feel it once though you started making, once you kind of adapted to doing stuff for RT, then it got a bit easier, and you went, okay, I understand this process now, and then you were able to sort of like bring it back to more what you wanted?
It kind of was, yeah. Like the first season was so scripted that if we looked at ourselves on camera and we're like, geez, it looks like we've lost the essence. We've kind of changed from being these kind of raw headers to being like, oh, like, what's your story? What's your character arc and all the other stuff? But then by season 2 and season 3, we met in the middle somewhere, and we kind of realized that it's not a bad thing necessarily to know your lines, and also like if you have a good bit that you've wrote, you can kind of work that in. You can have that sort of up your sleeve, So
yeah.
I think by the end of it, we found a nice middle ground. But then we ended up not making any more series. So shame, really.
Did you have any sort of like celebrities? Did you have any actors, big names, asking to get in it?
Oh yeah, Brian Kennedy, baby. Well, not really.
Brian Kennedy, babe, definitely just a natural fit to be in the Hardy Bucks.
He was giving out about Hardy Bucks online for some reason, and I think himself and the Viper had this very brief Twitter spat, and then someone said, "Would you like to be in the show?" And he goes, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind actually." And then he was thrown into the show. But celebrities, I don't know. I don't think it was at a stage big enough for celebrities to get into it. But that would have been nice, because that would have definitely made it stratospheric,
Do you want me to? Can I tell you a very quick story about Brian Kennedy?
Oh yeah, please do. Yeah.
So my friend Kieran Bartlett is a stand-up, and Kieran's from West Belfast. And one day we were in BBC. Brian Kennedy like glided past us. He's almost like Messiah, like Brian Kennedy.
Yeah.
He used to have that long hair, and he sort of like glided by us. Like I don't know if he had feet, but he just continued to move. And I said, God, that's Brian Kennedy. And Kieran said, he's from Beachmount in West Belfast, I think, Brian Kennedy, which is a really working class area. But Brian Kennedy's like very, the way he speaks is very middle class and very sort of like, he's a lovey, And apparently they were filming something for the National Lottery like 15, 20 years ago, back where Brian Kennedy is from. So they were in West Belfast. And he was, talking about where he was from, and he was talking about the area and his music. And a gunshot went off in the background, and Brian Kennedy went from talking like that to his sort of like his natural voice. So Brian Kennedy was like, "Yes, this is where I grew up." The gunshot went off, and Brian Kennedy apparently went, "Holy fuck, let's fucking go." He just lost it in a second.
Christ above. Have you met him before?
I haven't met him. I don't know. There's just I feel like I might get lost in his eyes. I don't know if I would come out. What a man! What a man, George.
What a man! He was a lovely fellow too. Really nice fellow. We collected him from the train station here in Foxford, and he was just, because Hardy Bucks, there was like 20 or 30 of us, or whoever amount of people that are filming, and it's like a big community. And then he just landed down. This is after the slagging he kind of gave the Hardy Bucks. So we kind of gave him kudos for that,
What was his issue? What was Brian Kennedy's issue with the Hardy Bucks?
I mean, like, I suppose I can understand some people will watch the show and be thinking, like, these lads are just on about drinking, fighting, and smoking and whatever. But, like, we always thought there was a bit more to it than that, but some people didn't see that. So I think he said something along the lines of, "I'm scarlet for Hardy Bucks." You know the way in Dublin they say scarlet for something, like, as in I'm embarrassed for Hardy Bucks.
Right. But
so
I mean,
something like that.
At the same time, Brian, don't be embarrassed by it and then go and do it. That's like me being like, ISIS are fucking deplorable. Like, these guys need to disappear, and then they give me a call, and I'm like, "Hey, guess who's training?" I want to talk to you about two things before I let you go. One is the film. I didn't see the film at the time. I remember it came out in cinemas around Belfast, and I was like, "I'm gonna go see that." Didn't get round to going to see it, and then saw it about a year later, and I thought it was great. And I think the reason I enjoyed it even more is because I started thinking about being like a performer and that, about how much fun you would have had making it, because that looked like it was just and it looked like you were on an adventure, and you were also like filming something on the side, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah, the filming actually got in the way of the crack we're having.
Yeah.
We travelled from Swinford to Poland, and we stopped along the way loads of different places. We stopped in Amsterdam, and we stopped in Amsterdam was probably the craziest because obviously you had the red light district, but we went into the blue light district as well to do a bit of filming. But anytime we went down with a camera looking for somebody to be in it, like a
What's the
model or
difference
whatever.
between the red light district and I've been in Amsterdam, but I don't know what the blue light district is.
The red light is like just a woman, like, but the blue light I think is like a transvestite.
Ah, get you.
So the woman in the Hardy book, she was in the blue light, so we were expecting her when she was pulling up her dress that there'd be like Mickey that'd pop out, but obviously that didn't happen. But I don't know if this is a family podcast or not, so you
No,
can
it's not. It's not.
get rid of that bit. But when the movie did come out, we like had to go to the different cinemas across Ireland to see people and go, "How are you doing, lads? Thanks for coming along to watch the movie." But then the people in the cinemas were like, "You guys sit at the back." So we were sitting at the back of the cinema, watching people watching our movie. It was the weirdest thing ever. It was very uncomfortable, but making the movie in Poland was one of the best experiences ever.
Yeah. Where I want to chat to you about the Paddy Power stuff and all that, and stand up a little bit in a second. But where's Hardy Bucks at now? Is it sort of at the point where is it like One Direction in a way? Is it like, look, we've been there, we've done it, and there's like talk of a reunion? Is it something like you would revisit for like a series, an online special, or another movie? Like what's the crack at the minute? Sippers, I'm going to be really rude and interrupt the podcast just for a very quick minute. We're looking for charities and people doing fundraising to get in touch with us. teawithmepodcast@gmail.com, and we will read out a bit of information about what you have going on. Honestly, get in touch with us because we will do it. But let me at this point just say that we don't have a sponsor at the minute for this podcast. We have had in the past. We don't at the minute. If you would be interested in sponsoring the Tea With Me podcast, get in touch with us, teawithmepodcast@gmail.com. Whatever your business is, if you're a company that makes pool tables, if you're borderline a paramilitary but like not that sly, if you make bespoke glass, get in touch with us and maybe we can do something. teawithmepodcast@gmail.com. Other than that, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do so. Tell a mate about that. We'll always appreciate it. And if you can rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, I know that's asking a lot, but that would be really sweet. And obviously be dead on about it. Don't be like, oh, I'm not keen. If you're not keen, stop listening and just go do a jigsaw. But yeah, I appreciate all the support we get for this podcast. Appreciate it. We got good guests coming up, and I'm going to do the solo episodes where obviously I'll take your questions as always. So that's one of those is coming up on Friday. Back with the podcast with Oon Cogan.
I'd say, well, the thing is, we're all in different places because we all have. Well, I don't have family, Shane, but some of the other lads have family. Like Eddie Durkin's got kids and stuff like that, and then the Viper's obviously doing his own thing as well. So I'd say we'll definitely come back together in a few years' time. But I don't know, for whatever reason, we didn't get another series. I think RTE were a bit skint at the moment at the time of us looking for another series. But there seems to be a lot of people interested in us making another one. So now that it's on Netflix, we have, I think it's another year up there, Netflix on the Netflix site. So I think they're going to review the ratings of it or whatever, and then there's a potential for an offer of another series, I think, on there.
Oh, great! I mean, as a big fan of Hardy Bucks, I'd love to see like a couple of years down the line where everybody was. That kind of episode where we're like, what's everyone been doing? I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That would be very funny. I think the storyline needs to develop into something like that. It needs to suit our age. Because we couldn't really go back to the way it was, because if we're all in our mid-30s to late 30s, we have to be talking about families and mortgages, making it funny, but like talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The stuff you do for Paddy Power since then. So when you and I first met, I think it was at a gig in Edinburgh. Remember we got booked to do like some Paddy's?
Right. Yeah, that's right. In the Three Sisters.
Three Sisters. Yeah, and you just started stand up like maybe a year at that point.
Yeah.
You're just finding your way into it, and that was that gig. From what I remember, was like one of those ones where it's like it's a bit rowdy. People like it's a Paddy's Day gig, and I think when I chatted to you then, you said that you were looking to get into stand up and do some of your own online stuff, and the online stuff and the stand up seems to be flying because you're touring with the stand up. And the online stuff that you do with Fergal, I did a...
Fergal Costello, you did a movie with them, did you?
It was a pilot for Channel 4.
Oh, brilliant.
And it was one of those ones where like, we were just chatting about like things we were into, and Fergal said he'd done some RTE stuff, and I mentioned Hardy Bucks. I was like a big Hardy Bucks fan, and then he was chatting about working with you. But the Paddy Power stuff and the online stuff you do is fantastic. I
Thanks very much.
I think it's great. I think you've almost, I don't know, but maybe taken the character of Buzz from Hardy Bucks and changed it a bit, but
Yeah,
there,
changing it a very, very slight bit.
no Celtic top.
Exactly. That's it.
No. I think it's I personally, and especially the online stuff and like the Jambon videos, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like it's a different character, and it's hard to even describe that. Would you call it a character? Is it like an
You know,
exaggeration?
I've tried to embrace the weirdest parts of my own personality, and then like I think to myself, is that funny? It is funny because it's so daft, maybe, but it's, you know, I like jambons in real life, so I'm like, why not just exaggerate how much I love them and then just keep talking about them? And who makes videos about that kind of stuff? So it's just like embracing the very weird parts of my own personality, really.
If you had said there that you don't like jambons in real life, I think that would have been a decent showbiz exclusive. Colgan doesn't really like jambons.
That would have been a hot take. But anytime I go to a deli now and I meet lads, they're like, "Oi, you're in for the jambons, yeah?" And I'm like, I actually am, yeah.
You feel pressurized into eating more of them, and just
Exactly, yeah. People looking at me when I'm ordering food in the deli. I mean, there's already enough pressure there. Never mind having lads looking at you as to
yeah.
what you're going to buy. But
And what about the stand up then? Are you missing performing? I know it's killing
in
me.
some ways I am, Shane. In some ways I am, but I find the gigs very hard. For some reason, I can't. I like to improvise and just talk shit and just see what pops up. But with stand up, I'm sure you're a professional, but it's like I can't seem to I can't feel comfortable up there yet. I did a few gigs there in Belfast, different places, and there's so many points in my mind when I'm on stage and I'm like, oh fuck, what am I doing up here? You know, I kind of freak out a small bit, you know, and I get really nervous before the stand-up gig. So it's something I'm going to conquer, but I'm a long way off it yet.
The podcast I did, we were chatting about it just before we recorded with Liam McCourt there. I was chatting to her about nerves and adrenaline of being a fighter, and going out and I think the theme when you speak to anyone who does any sort of performance, whether it's sport or performing or whatever, is if you didn't have the nerves, that's when you get worried. You know, when the nerves aren't there, that's when you're going to be complacent. I think nerves show that you want it to work. You know, you
care about it.
Yeah, and I guess it is just like channeling the nerves into something positive, and because I know going on stage sometimes and I still get nervous at times, definitely. Like there's times where I'm shaking just before I go on. But
you never think it. Like you look very comfortable up there, no more than Colin Geddes and the boys.
My hands used to shake physically for the first couple of years of doing stand-up. So I always had to make sure I was like on the move, you know, on stage. I would always kind of move my hand. But I just look at it now, like if I can get the first laugh, then it's all fine. It's all good. And then also, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You know,
well, that's it. Yeah. Nothing really. Like the crowd are going to look at you, and you can kind of see in their eyes. Maybe sometimes they're like, "Oh, you could have done better there," but that's not that bad either. Like, you know, it's all a learning curve. You know, you're always trying to fall forward, I suppose.
Do you have when you tour? Do you have a support act?
It depends on the venue, but normally I bring a lad with me from Mayo, or else I'll bring one of the Hardy Bucks with me. Maybe Salmon or someone like that from the Hardy Bucks. I'll bring them along the way. Or else if I'm in a certain town and I know a lad from that town, I'll just say, "Do you want to come up and do 15 or 20 minutes there?"
Yeah, I was going to say that's a great call as well. Like having someone on that's going to like set the tone for the crowd definitely makes me feel less nervous. Like when I'm on tour, I usually have Connor Keys or William Thompson, a couple of like guys from home, and they're great at just like letting the crowd. It's almost like an MC, you know, and a support act in one. You know, you're sort of like, here's the crack, here's the way it's going to work. Then I go on stage going, I don't need to worry about explaining to the audience, don't talk when I'm on, kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. Are you scripted 100%, or are you doing much improv up
there? So I would have a start, a middle, and an end. I find it hard to like retain lines. So if I had to learn like even for like that TV thing me and Fergal did, I didn't have that many lines and I struggled to remember them. So I have a start, a middle, and an end, but I'll say it differently every time. You know, I might have a punchline that I'll say word for word, but as long as I know where it's going, I can have a bit of fun in between, like you say about a bit of improv, because there's nothing funnier to me than when I see a comedian come up with a new bit on, like even a new line,
Yeah, there's
and
goal there, isn't there?
and they,
There's an energy about that.
yeah, and they pull on that thread. That's when I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't like to learn stuff word for word, but then again, since this whole lockdown things happened, I'm looking at all the current material I have and seeing, okay, if this is 7 out of 10, how can I make this 10 out of 10? And
Hmm.
sometimes just changing a couple of words and maybe learning it a bit more would benefit me. So
Yeah, because
I don't
I
know.
suppose the more you know it, the more you can sort of forget it in a way.
Yeah, but there's nothing worse than somebody on stage that repeats the same thing word for word
Yeah,
every time because they don't have it in their eyes. They're just in
yeah,
autopilot. So I,
exactly. That's the ththing, Shade. It's in the eyes. You can see when somebody, as you said, comes up with a line on stage, and you can see that even they're excited by saying it, and I think that's where the real goal lies.
yeah, I think it's definitely useful for me to have a start, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
I know how this joke starts. I know how to like bring it back into letting people know like this is what we're talking about, and then I know how to finish it. But then yeah, if something crops up in between, like that's when I get giddy on stage, and then that's when I think I'm at my best when I'm
Hmm.
like playful and not taking things too seriously.
That's how you are around your friends, I suppose. So that's
Yeah,
you need to keep that giddy sort of childish energy about yourself.
yeah. What's next for you after all this? Like, what are you like writing anything? You got anything?
I have a series up on RT Player. It's called Around the Fire with me, Oon Cogan, and I interview. I was meant to interview more guests, but then the coronavirus kicked in, so that put that on blocks. But it's basically me sitting at a fireplace interviewing guests, and it's Eric Andre inspired. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
that.
yeah, American
that
guy. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, that kind of silly sort of comedy stuff. So that's what's going on with that. I have to reorganize or rearrange a lot of the dates for the gigs, and then just trying to do a lot of writing as well. I'd love to bring out a book, but I do a few pages of it and then I put it to one side. But I need to
yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
settle down and write the full book. And I'm going to start a family as well, Chin.
Yeah, enjoy right now in that car.
Exactly. Yeah, just waiting for my friend to land over. But no, that's about it then, really.
That's great,
I
man.
just want to really take it seriously now, and really push hard and try to become good at making podcasts and try to, especially the stand up, because personally I think stand up is probably the best of all the comedy worlds, because
Definitely.
if you have an idea during the daytime, you can go up on stage and then tell how many, 10, 20, or 100 people, whatever. So
Yeah,
it's something very nice about the liberty of that. So that's what I want to really master.
I think yeah. But for me, this whole lockdown things made me like appreciate stand up a bit more and like look,
Yeah,
you're full time making videos. You're doing some podcasts, stand up. This is like dream job territory. This is
yeah,
like not many people get to do the thing that they love to do. Um,
exactly. Yeah,
so I think this has made everyone probably go like, right, can I put in 5% more effort? Because I
yeah,
think I've noticed like churning out more videos and stuff. I'm like, why can I not always do this? Okay,
exactly.
you
Yeah, yeah,
you won't always be stuck in the house, but at the same time, if you just put that extra work in, you can definitely always see the results from that.
yeah.
Um,
How was your liberty? Did you do a gig in Ulster Hall in Belfast? You do a few in a row there? Or?
yeah, I did Waterfront last year, and that should be happening in October. So Waterfront is bigger still than the Ulster
Wow.
Hall. So that's
What
the
was that like?
biggest one I've ever done. It
Jeez.
was it was weird because I didn't get the same nerves as I did with Ulster Hall. Um,
I got you. Yeah.
I was still nervous, but it wasn't like I didn't feel like I don't know if I can do this. I felt calm. Because of the venue setup, it's not just like a big long room. It's like
Hmm.
tiered for an orchestra,
Hmm.
so it doesn't look like it's that many people, and it was just a lot of fun. I really really enjoyed it, and I didn't know in my head. I was like, I think Ulster Hall's maybe like the maximum people I'd like to perform in front of at once. I think there's something you need to make intimate about stand up,
Yeah.
and I was worried about losing that, but I think Waterfront has it. So I'm supposed to do it in October again, but
Make it
50-50
push down.
on 50-50 on that happening. But I don't know. I think sometimes for me, that many people, like 2,000 people, in my head, I see that as just one big mass person. I see that as just one group.
Well, that's a
Um,
lot of people. That's a
whereas
lot of people.
Whereas if I play to like 40, 50 people, which
Hmm.
I do on the tour in certain gigs, I see that as like a room of individuals. So I'm like,
Yeah,
what's this person going to think? Why is that guy not laughing? Whereas
I
when it's
got you.
just one big group, I go,
Yeah,
well, the majority of people seem to be enjoying it. You know, it's almost,
that's all that matters. Yeah, yeah. You can't be nitpicking.
yeah. But when I come off, I always have this of those type of shows. I always just have this feeling of I feel like I'm not in my body, and it takes me like 2 days to register the gig, and then
Yeah,
I go, "Oh yeah, that was great," you know. But I just have this weird, you know, like at the start of Saving Private Ryan when all the lads are getting their legs blown off,
yeah, yeah.
and there's no sound. That's me for the next 2 days, just sort of walking around the beach, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I get you.
Yeah,
Christ above. Yeah, it's a funny one. The stand-up comedy it's a funny world because
yeah,
it's like anytime you tell people you do stand-up comedy, they're in awe. They're like, "What? You do stand-up comedy?" Like, because it's a scary thing to go up in front of people and talk and tell your jokes. So with the Hardy Bucks, we were kind of, we had all the different characters, so you could kind of go in under the radar a small bit. But if you go on stage and it's just you there with the microphone, you're kind of saying, "I think I'm fairly funny here now." So there's a bit of
yeah,
pressure on you.
yeah, yeah. Of course. I mean, the second you say I want to do stand up, you like you say you declare yourself as going, I'm funny. I think you'll enjoy
Yeah,
this, and
yeah,
yeah, I mean that's why I love the pressure of it on stage. I think I look at it now as like a fun pressure because
hmm
no matter what size of gig you're doing, it's the same philosophy of you have to prove that you're funny to these people. You have to make these people laugh.
yeah,
And okay, when you're doing a tour like we are, you get a wee bit more leeway because they're there for you. They know your stuff already, so
hmm
they're kind of already into it. But you still have to, for an hour or half an hour or however long you're up there, you have to just keep that going. So I
It's about a
like
10.
I like the pressure of it.
Yeah, I find like because they do know you, like if it's a gig for yourself, there's a nice 5-10 minute wave at the beginning where they're like, "Way,"
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
then that'll soon you go fast if you don't have the gags to back it up, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. God, I missed stand up so much. If you told me there was a gig in Mayo on tonight, I'd walk there. I miss it. I miss it so
Have you
much.
have you have you been watching many specials on Netflix?
Not a lot. I'm actually not that into watching stand up, if that makes sense. I think if I
Yeah, yeah,
watched a special every week, I think I would be too numb to stand up because when you go to gigs, you're watching stand up, and
yeah.
I don't like to have it in my head too much. I like to take a wee break from it, and
hmm
um and not really. But the one that I watched one that I really loved. I like Chris D'Elia's new special. I thought it was really good. It just went up on
Push it. Is
Netflix.
it push it? What's this one called? Push it
It's
on or something?
mm,
Pump it up.
something like that. Back of the net. I don't know something to something.
That's Alan Shearer's. Alan Shearer's next hour stand-up special. Back of the net.
At the at the end, he just does a callback and runs off, hand up above the head.
Shearer.
Yeah. Do you know what I am going to watch this weekend is a Cat Williams special. You know Cat
Oh, he's
Williams?
class. He's unbelievable, Cat Williams. Yeah.
Oh, he's one of my favorites. So I'm gonna check that out. But
Is this post or pre? 'Cause did he lose the canopy there for a while?
I remember seeing online he got into a fight with a child over a game of football. True story. Um,
Nice.
I don't know if you saw this, but I think it was like in Atlanta. Cat Stevens was there too. Him and Cat Williams were driving through the
And Cat
pub
Slater, yeah.
for their Netflix roadshow. But Cat Williams was driving through some area of Atlanta. He saw some kids playing soccer, and he got out of the car and he was like, "Here, can I play?" And they're like, "All right." And apparently, some kid like nutmegged him or something. The kid's like 14. Cat Williams challenged him to a fight, and then there's
Right.
viral videos of
Oh
this
no way.
this kid with Cat Williams in a headlock.
The thing is, though, he was doing a lot of stand-up comedy about the government and Illuminati and stuff like that. So some people that reckon that all that shit that kicked off on the side was a conspiracy for the FBI to catch him out. But that could be nonsense, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm seeing a lot of conspiracy theories flying around at the minute. A lot of guys getting well into it. I just,
Yeah,
I avoid it. You know, I
me
avoid
too.
it.
Yeah.
I just because I'm very easily led. So I would look at it and go, oh shit, the lizard people are running, they're running the place. You know,
No one told me.
I'm so gullible, so I just don't
Yeah.
look at any of that theory stuff. Owen, cheers for chatting to me doing the podcast. Really appreciate it,
No
and
worries, at all, Shane. Nice to
look
see you
forward
again.
to let's do a gig or a video or something soon when
Would
this
love
is
to.
all over.
Would absolutely love to. Yeah, give us a shout. Well, if you're ever in Mayo again, and I'll give you a shout. Where are you based?
We'll go for duck.
Go for a bit of duck and a couple of jam buns on the side salad.
I'm based in just outside Belfast.
All right, okay.
But I'm trying to play down south a bit more. I do on the tour. I'll do like Galway, Dublin, that couple of Monaghan, a couple other places. But I'd like to get down for more club gigs. You know, just like at the weekend, stuff like that. Just because it's, I should just do it more. I don't really have an excuse. I can just drive down and do it.
Well, next time you're in Mayo or even Dublin, give us a shout, and we'd love to shoot the breeze, Jim. Maybe film something.
Yeah, let's do that, man. Thank you very much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
No, take care.
Thanks, man.
God bless. Bye bye.
Sippers. There we have it. I'm just trying out different voices. The Tea With Me podcast episode with Oon Cogan. I'm sure you'll agree, Owen's just a very, very sound guy. Massively down to earth. Just a delight of a guy. And yeah, we talked there about doing something together, and that's something you know what? I'm gonna put a bit of olive oil in the pan. You know, there's no commitment there, but you know that the meat, when we come up with the meat, we'll be ready to just go straight on. So let's just see what happens there. But Owen, great guy, gave me his time to do that, and really enjoyed chatting to him. Probably get him on for another episode at some point if he's up for it. Hope you guys enjoyed that. When I say let me know what guests you want on, I mean it. teawithmepodcast@gmail.com, or comment under this. On Friday, I'm going to get into it with a proper big solo episode where I'm answering listeners' questions. We'll have a bit of silly fun. I'm also going to bring back a feature I used to do in the Shane Toddcast, which is TripAdvisor reviews of anything. You know, public service or service stations, hotels, restaurants, whatever. Just read out bad reviews. There's always good fun to be had in that. So yeah, be back with a Friday episode. Let me plug one more time before I leave you with the Patreon. Patreon.com/teawithmepodcast. What happens is me and producer Dan do an episode every week. Sometimes they're half an hour, sometimes an hour, and it's a bit different to this. But if you enjoy the podcast, you'll enjoy those episodes, and you know you just get to support the podcast, which means a lot. We get some nice things for the podcast once this lockdown's over. We're gonna have the studio looking very, very sexy. We're talking lava lamps. We're talking about faux fur, so it's not real. We're talking about, I don't know, a penguin. That would be class to have a penguin in the studio. Something we're going to look at. At the very least, we'll use that money to make stickers. And if you're a Patreon, you'll get sent out a free sticker. All the merch and stuff like that, it's coming. Also, some of the guests that I have had on, I'm going to ask back to do a second episode because there's some stuff we could really get into. So watch this space for that. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you just listen to the audio version, the video version's on YouTube, Tea With Me Podcast, you'll find it, and vice versa. Thanks very much for listening to the Tea With Me Podcast. I'm Shane Todd. Enjoy your teas, guys. Alright.